So this guy's name is Sato. He's 29 years old, he lives in Japan, and he's a naval engineer. He designs oil tanker ships. He's a really smart guy, and Sato has been working out of town for about 3 months because he's been designing this brand new oil tanker. And now, it's his last day working away from home. He is more than ready to leave that city. He just wants to get back home so he can be with his wife and son again. So anyway, he's walking to work on this final day, already daydreaming about finally being done and heading home. And just as he's reaching the shipyard, suddenly he hears the sound of an airplane buzzing overhead. Now that's not uncommon, but this plane sounds different. So he looks up, and he realizes this is not a commercial plane. It's a military plane flying directly over the city. And as he stares at it, something drops out from the bottom of the aircraft. As this object falls toward the ground, Sato watches it, trying to figure out what exactly it is. And that is when suddenly, pow, a blinding flash fills the entire sky. It's so bright it completely blinds him for a moment. And in this split second, Sato is totally disoriented, but he immediately realizes this bright flash is from a bomb explosion. And light travels faster than sound, so he knows what's coming next. Immediately, he dives to the ground for cover. He rolls into a ditch, covers his face with his hands, and plugs his ears just in time to hear a massive kaboom. The force of the blast is so powerful that it literally lifts him off the ground and throws him into the air, spinning him around like a tornado. And then, bam, he slams back down to the ground. And he's out cold. When Sato finally regains consciousness, everything around him is dark. His ears are ringing violently. And his first thought is, oh no, I'm dead. It takes him a moment to realize. He's not dead. He's alive. And he's lying in the middle of a potato patch. Slowly, he stands up, barely able to see through the thick ash falling from the sky. But off in the distance, he can see it. A gigantic mushroom cloud of fire rising into the air. Because Sato is in Hiroshima. At the exact moment, it becomes the first city in history to be hit by an atomic bomb. So he looks down at himself. His face is badly burned. His arms are burned. His eardrums are ruptured. Everything hurts. But somehow, he's still alive. So he stumbles through the falling ash with almost no visibility, trying to make his way back toward the shipyard where he works. And when he gets there, he finds 2 of his co-workers. They're also covered in ash. They're also badly burned. The 3 men look at each other like, what do we even do now? Now here's the thing. Japan is right in the middle of World War II at this point, and local governments had been building air raid shelters all around the country to protect people in case bombs were dropped. So the entire country had been preparing for attacks. The 3 men start searching around, and eventually they find one of these air raid shelters. They go inside, huddle together with a bunch of other survivors, and try to survive the night. And while they're there, they finally hear one small piece of hopeful news. Somehow, one of the local train stations is still operating. The trains are still running. So the 3 men stay in that shelter overnight. And the next morning, Sato says, I need to get home to my wife and son. Unfortunately, his family lives in another city, many hours away by train. But Sato and his co-workers are determined to reach that train station. So the 3 of them set out on foot. And as they walk through the city, or what's left of it, it looks like an apocalyptic hellscape. Everything is either buried in ash or completely on fire. Most of the buildings are gone, just flattened, destroyed. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that the streets are littered with charred and melted bodies. Eventually, the 3 men reach a bridge they need to cross in order to get to the train station. But of course, the bridge is no longer standing. At this point, it's just a pile of wreckage. But they've already come this far. They can't stop now. So they decide they're going to swim across the river. The problem is, the river is covered with floating dead bodies. And somehow, they still force themselves into the water and swim through it. Eventually, they make it across. Finally, they reach the train station. And Sato gets on a train heading back home. The train is packed with other survivors, most of them badly burned from the explosion. It's an overnight trip. And the next morning, the train finally reaches his stop. Sato immediately heads straight to the hospital. The burns on his face and hands are so severe that his doctor doesn't even recognize him at first. But eventually, he receives treatment. They bandage him up as best they can. And after that, he finally heads home to see his wife and son. When he arrives home, he's completely burned and wrapped in bandages. At first, Even his own family doesn't recognize him. But despite everything, he's alive, he's safe, and he's finally back with his family. Until the next morning. Because Sato is the kind of man who is deeply dedicated to his work. Even though he's severely injured and mentally traumatized, he still gets ready and heads to work at the home office in his city. And as soon as his boss sees him walking covered in bandages, his boss is like, "What the hell happened to you?" Now his boss had heard there was some kind of attack on Hiroshima, but he doesn't believe Sato could have actually survived something like that. So his boss pulls him into a conference room and says, "All right, tell me what really happened." And Sato starts explaining everything. He says, "They dropped a bomb on Hiroshima. It was insane." And of course, his boss is thinking, there is absolutely no way one bomb could destroy an entire city. Famous last words. Because at that exact moment, pow, another blinding flash suddenly fills the sky. The exact same flash Sato saw in Hiroshima. And this time, he immediately knows what's happening. So without hesitation, he dives straight to the floor. And then, kaboom! Every window in the office explodes. Glass and debris go flying everywhere. The entire office is destroyed. Everything is blown apart. And when Sato finally comes to, all of his bandages have been blown off. Everything around him is complete chaos. A second atomic bomb has just been dropped. People are screaming. People are panicking. The entire city has been devastated. Even the building he's inside is now mostly just a skeleton. And somehow, Sato checks himself and realizes he isn't any more injured than he already was. Which means he has just survived 2 atomic bomb blasts. One in Hiroshima, and another 3 days later in Nagasaki. What are the odds? But then suddenly he remembers. My wife, my son. And immediately panic sets in. Did the bomb hit them? Are they alive? So Sato runs out of the building, or what's left of it, and starts sprinting through the falling ash. He's dodging fires left and right, desperately trying to get home. And eventually, he arrives at his house. But his home is gone. Completely destroyed. Reduced to nothing but rubble. And Sato is devastated. What happened to his wife and son? So here's what actually happened. Shortly before the bomb dropped, his wife decided she wanted to go buy ointment for Sato's burns before he came home from work. So she took their son and went to the store. And while they were there, kaboom, the bomb dropped. But luckily, the store was farther away from the blast than their house was. So his wife and son only suffered minor injuries. And if you really think about it, if Sato had never been injured in the first atomic bomb, his wife may never have gone to buy that ointment, which means they probably would have been home during the second blast. And they likely would have died. That's insane to think about. Now eventually, Sato does develop radiation poisoning, but he survives. And later in life, he becomes a public speaker, speaking out against the use of atomic weapons. And after surviving 2 atomic bomb explosions, Sato goes on to live a long life. He eventually lives to be 93 years old. And then sadly, he dies of cancer, likely related to surviving both atomic bomb blasts.